Many areas in the East Coast are going to be feeling relief for a little while from this cold front, but some spots in the central part of the country are going to heat right back up with a chance for a major storm to push east next week. I have all the details and more in the next 10 minutes. Let's hop right on in. Let's start with that satellite imagery for today. This is your Saturday, October 7th for us here. We've got a cold front with cool air pushing on in behind it. I've been talking about this cold front for the last almost 10 days now, and you can see how it's combining with what's left of Philippe up there in the northeast and creating a southerly flow, but that's about what's left of this system for the United States, other than the cool air it's leaving behind, with your Sunday morning lows dropping down into the 40s, some 30s as well in portions of the north central part of the country, but these 40s will go all the way east into portions of the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, some of the coolest air of the season, if not the coolest air of the season for many. But look at this, we do have a warming trend back into the south central plains with 80s coming on your Sunday behind this. But let's talk about what this does in the temperature anomaly department as we go into your Sunday. Again, near average in the south central plains. This is normal conditions for your Sunday. And then as we go towards our Monday morning, you're waking up to cooler than average conditions, continuing over portions of the eastern United States and the Great Lakes by about 5 to 8 degrees, with a 5 to 8, maybe even 10 plus degree temperature departure above average here into portions of the western third of the country. Now, as we go into your Tuesday and into our Wednesday, that's when we see this warmth begin to push eastward with a southerly wind picking on up in the central part of the country by the time we head towards midweek. The only area still seeing that cooler than average condition or near average condition is going to be in the east, as well as right around the Great Lakes, where the wraparound northwest flow behind that low pressure system will remain. We're going to see high pressure briefly moving into portions of the central part of the country, but you can see that cooler air pushing into the west is courtesy of a new low pressure system that's going to be entering the Rockies, moving on out into the plains by the time we go into Wednesday and Thursday, and that's going to be causing some problems as we head towards the late part of next week. And here's what that looks like. You can clearly make out that front as we go towards your middle of your afternoon on Friday, with temperatures being about 5 to 10 degrees above average ahead of this front and about 10 to 15 degrees below average behind it. This is a very spring-like setup. So let's talk about some different model scenarios with how we could see severe weather as we go towards next week. First of all, playing out the next 24 hours or so. Here you go. You can see as we go towards your Monday, as we head towards that mid-afternoon time frame, we've got this system pushing into the Pacific Northwest portions of northwestern California, also getting in on the precipitation from this. This forms a cold front that will eventually move east, a trough out of portions of the central plains as we go towards our Wednesday, Thursday, push towards the mid-Atlantic, the Ohio Valley, and then the mid-Atlantic as we head towards your Thursday, Friday, and into our Saturday. But that's a little bit beyond the point right now. Let's talk about what's going to go on as we go Tuesday night and into our Wednesday. Overall, nothing yet across the plains. Some scattered precipitation over the mountain west with this Euro model scenario here, and some of that will fall as snow in some of the higher elevations. Notice we get our first showers and storms to begin popping off with this system at that time into portions of Missouri and Nebraska, according to the scenario, with a Gulf system beginning to push on off towards the east at that time as well, according to the European model. Now notice how that Gulf system, as I play this out, really kind of pushes into portions of the Florida Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast with some heavy precipitation there. That kind of moves east over the Atlantic. That's kind of a short-lived situation with this setup, with a new, very severe-looking setup developing over portions of the Midwest and the central part of the country with a classic low-pressure system, tightly packed isobars there, meaning very quick changing pressure in some of these areas, which means higher wind speeds. And yes, higher wind speeds can, of course, indicate a very strong system. As we head towards the weekend time frame, so this is as we're talking about September 13th going into the 14th. I know maybe the bad luck vibes right on your September 13th, or October 13th. I don't know why I keep saying September, but anyway, this storm pushes on off towards the northeast. The wind's pushing in behind it, and yes, some more rain for the northeast. I would watch out for some flooding with this system as it pushes in that direction. And yes, the potential for some isolated severe weather with that, as maybe a new area of low pressure would kick up. But again, that's a little beyond the point right now. That's a little far out. But this is definitely to show you that we could see pretty feisty storm system in central parts of the country. Now with this GFS model, I'm going to be comparing it to the Euro. So here we go towards our Tuesday. Again, we're seeing that system push on into the Pacific Northwest as well as the Mountain West at a similar time frame, Tuesday going into Wednesday. Some of that moisture touching southern portions of Texas before pushing through the Gulf as well, by the way. But overall, the setup looks very similar for the GFS model. Notice these tightly packed isobars out ahead of this trough over the plains. That means windy conditions, at least breezy for sure, are going to develop over that area initially and well ahead of the system. And here we go into our Wednesday. Some pretty heavy precipitation with this setup right along all the way along the Gulf Coast as this low pressure system pushes into Georgia, the Carolinas as we head towards our Wednesday night and into our Thursday. That's the GFS setup. So that's a little different from the Euro, which takes us further south and back over the Atlantic. Notice some mountain snowfall wrapping back around the system here over portions of the Mountain West, but we've got this rainfall beginning in the Midwest, and again, this is what the look of a severe weather setup as we head towards the middle to latter half of this week. But again, with that storm closer to the Gulf Coast, the Euro keeping this further south, the GFS kind of dragging this along the coast, which is more of an El Nino type setup, eventually knocking this off the coast, though, of the Carolinas there as we head towards our Thursday night and our Friday. Not really showing any sort of severe weather with the GFS model as we go into our Thursday and Friday necessarily, but it's once we go Friday night into Saturday when you begin to see that cold front-ish look with the GFS model here in the Midwest and a little bit further north across the Great Lakes region where I would monitor the severe weather with the GFS setup. Cooler air would be coming on in behind that as this front progresses eastward. So really anywhere from portions of the Mid-South, but especially the Midwest to the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, that's where I would watch out for the best chance of severe weather with this system. As it will have some ingredients to work with. Now, here's what this is going to look like in terms of, some of the wind energy in the atmosphere. You can see a classic U-shaped on the eastern side of that, a trough developing, basically an area of low pressure that's going to kind of form a little bit of a line here over portions of the central part of the country as it moves east, again, bringing that severe weather potential with it. I'd be watching out for those lightning strikes into portions of Iowa, Missouri, portions of Illinois as we head towards the Thursday and into our Friday time frame here this week. That could go as far south as well as towards portions of Arkansas. Let's continue playing this out. Here we go into our Friday, into our Saturday, and this system continues pushing east. Remember, the active weather would be out ahead of the wind energy, but nonetheless, this is going to be pushing off the east coast at this point and moving on off over the Atlantic. And then as we go into our September 15th and 16th, most of this should be offshore as that wind energy pushes past the Carolinas. But definitely a feisty piece of wind energy to watch there, and I would definitely watch that. Watch out for that as it moves off the coast, of course, and before that as it was moving across the country. Now, in terms of our dew points with the system, this is what's concerning. We're going to see some 60-degree dew points go north in the fall. It's pretty indicative of the chance for some severe weather as this pushes on up into Kansas, Missouri, maybe as far north as Nebraska and Iowa as well with some of the model runs we're showing. This is actually one of the more conservative ones, and we're seeing that blue stripe indicating those 60-degree dew points pushing northward. Again, 20s and 30s for dew points, hitting this into portions of the western plains, the high plains there. Again, am I saying this is a spring-like severe weather setup where we've got those dew points, in the 70s and 60s out ahead of this and dew points, near zero behind this? No. But this is definitely, enough to create some severe weather as these 50s, some low 60s push on up towards the mid-Atlantic as we go into our Friday night with this system. And then notice this clears very similarly to our last front that we're having right now and behind you if you're watching this video later on. Into this week, but you can see, the drier air would push back in, and this is very similar to the current front that we've been seeing, the first big fall front, and this could be another one. Now, in terms of your severe certainty for Wednesday, October 11th through Saturday the 14th, you can see for us here, as we go Wednesday into Thursday, as this dynamic system sets up over the plains, I would watch for severe weather from portions of eastern Kansas over to portions of Illinois. That's where I would expect that level 2 threat for severe weather to arise. As we go into our Friday into portions of the Ohio Valley, portions of Appalachia, that's where this Friday threat may develop. And then heading on up into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Friday night and into our Saturday, that's where I'd watch those storms. Again, this is as a low-pressure system develops over portions of the upper Midwest, curls on up towards portions of the Northeast, and the further south this low pressure tracks, the further south this the severe stripe is going to be. So where we see this hatched area that I'm drawing out right now, that's where I'd watch for at least some initial dangerous severe weather. And again, these systems tend to weaken as they push east, but that might not be the case with this one, as you can see a very thin but very strong stripe of some of the rainfall here with that system as well as the one along the Gulf Coast. Both could produce rainfall totals anywhere from 2 to 4 inches in pretty widespread fashion. A little bit of a break in between here across portions of the south and east. But again, 2 to 4 inch totals, anywhere you see some of those purplish colors. In some of those yellow colors, that's where I'd watch out for the isolated totals here up to 6 inches, maybe even a little higher. That could hit portions of the Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, as well as up here over the Midwest. And the one in the Midwest is what I'd be more concerned about, because that's definitely some abnormal rainfall for that region. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and like and subscribe, and here are the credits, everyone.